All right, I hope that this is able to post okay. I'm doing the second part. So Conrad Roberts plays Reverend Allgood, a preacher in the film that they meet on a barge. And he's got a daughter named Martha Plimpton who is flirtatious with River Phoenix's character. So I felt that those elements of the film were really interesting because here you got these two children, or these children meeting under this different circumstance. One of the father is an extremist into religion, and one is an extremist into outdoor adventure seeking and anti-religion. He's very anti-religion, not necessarily. He knows religion inside and out, and quotes the Bible back to Reverend Allgood to kind of thumb his nose at him, and says that God left this planet incomplete, and he, as man, is here to complete God's work. And it's very interesting, a very interesting concept indeed. But yet, it's in his application and always wanting to find an aggrandized version of him, of his achievements constantly, because they move in and they buy this town of Geronimo, because he's been a successful inventor. He invented some kind of mop that you stand up on and you can dance around and mop on it, and then you can. He also invents this thing called Fat Boy, which he thinks can revolutionize how you can make ice in rural areas. It's pretty impressive. I mean, I don't even know how they rigged up all this stuff for the movie. It had a decent budget behind it, so I find that the technical stuff that they purport him to achieve, and the way that the houses and stuff that they build on the island are very impressive, very, very, very impressive. But then he's basically like a cult leader, and Helen Mirren's under his spell, and Helen Mirren should be having the wisdom to say, like, no, we're not going to leave our nice house here in Massachusetts and all our possessions here and go on a barge to the Mosquito Coast. Honey, you can go ahead and go down to Florida for a couple weeks and live like a wilderness freak or something like that, and then come back up here and work for a living and quit being a dick to everyone. Because there's this one scene where Jason Alexander, George Costanza from Seinfeld, he's working at a hardware store, and he hears Harrison Ford's character come into the store, and he rolls his eyes at him and just dreads interacting with Harrison Ford. And Harrison Ford asks him for some equipment. Jason Alexander says it's $3.99, and then basically Harrison Ford slurs the store, slurs his work ethic, and slurs how Japan is having uh, outright influence on the economy at that time, and slurs Japanese people. So I mean, the guy's got his heart in the right place. There are some things about consumerism and this and that he points out that are interesting, but then you don't go to the next level, and the next level is taking your whole family, and I mean a young kid, boy, a younger guy, River Phoenix, a wife that's hot, and two really young redhead girls that don't really shouldn't be out in the nature. They get attacked by a leech as soon as they get there, and you get the idea that these black, or these various inhabitants of the island are almost interested in the redhead girls, because it's like they're such a, I don't know, they're so what do you say, exotic to them. I mean, here's these redheaded kids wearing these crazy dresses, and they basically demand that they start, they really like to see the fabric, and so they all start wearing the same fabric, so they almost become kind of a cult. um, so once he gets things thriving on the island, it's really actually kind of beautiful. His little pulleys, his rig systems, his this, his that. He's like a modern Robinson Crusoe, Swiss Family Robinson type guy, but he's still a dick, and he's always calling Helen Mirren mother. And it's like, hey, mother, in like a condescending manner, in my opinion. Sometimes it's with respect or with love, but a lot of times just like totally controlled over her. And I don't know what her education or background or anything like that. I'd like to know more about her character, but sadly they don't really develop that all that much. But they do, put some necessary stuff towards the end of the film about her, where you can understand finally, where she has enough's enough. Um, but continuing on with this film, Mosquito Coast, I'd almost like to see it get remade. I really would. I mean, I've never heard it discussed, and some people now say it's a classic, whereas at the time it wasn't getting good reviews. So it's the kind of film that I think is like ripe for a remake. If Papillon got remade, this is a more relevant film than Papillon, I feel. Um, so basically, he invents this cool ice machine, and he way larger version of it on the island. It's actually a scarily large ice machine thing, and it starts making ice. And then he realizes there's a rural tribe upriver, and that the people that he's making the ice for in Geronimo, in his opinion, are taking the ice for granted, but they're really not. They're really not taking it for granted at all. And he's the one that refuses to sell it. So who's taking it for granted? So they call him a communist a lot, and I kind of agree. It's like he's the worst parts of communism. He's trying to spread it as much as he can, whereas instead he should just build the strongest communist or commune type community that he can. So the movie is definitely a parable about why communist fails, in my opinion, on a large scale. Because then he expands up into the far-reaching jungles of the north, thinking he's going to carry a piece of ice the whole day and it's not going to melt, but it does melt, and he starts yelling at his kids because it's melting. So he's basically doing inevitable stuff where the results are inevitable, and then starts yelling at his kids. So then they start really resenting him, and while he's there, he realizes that there's people that he thinks have been taken hostage, but they're not. They're actually really bad people. They follow him back to his village that he's built, and at gunpoint basically take over everything that he's done. Then he's got kind of the interesting idea of saying that everything's infected by termites. So he starts knocking down all over the buildings that he's been building, and then figures out a way for them to actually sleep in the icebox. And then they, this is some spoilers are going to be up in this. So then he is able to kill them by freezing them and then setting them on fire in the ice machine. But as they're dying, they have guns and they're shooting out of the icebox machine, which causes massive explosions and ammonium nitrate to sink into their water source. So they're all going to die if they stay there. So then they become kind of recluses, just kind of scavenging around in the wilds. And he keeps having this really weird rivalry with the preacher. And I won't spoil things beyond that, but the movie is very, very, very intense. The weaknesses I've already pointed out, which were the score and the voiceover by River Phoenix. If I was redoing it, you don't know how the movie's going to end, or you don't have any idea of any conclusion of who's going to live and who's going to survive or who's going to die. I highly, highly recommend The Mosquito Coast. I'm probably going to check it out again in the next couple days. And I'd like to give respect to Jerome Hellman, the producer of this film. He produced a lot of really risky and interesting movies through the years. Coming Home, this film, Day of the Locust, and of course Midnight Cowboy. And props to everyone that acted in this film, including River Phoenix. A really good performance. And then also Jadrian Steele, the two twins, redheaded twins. I'd seen them, I think, in other films as well. And everyone, Martha Plimpton does good in it. Helen Mirren does good with what she has. And standout Conrad Roberts. Gosh, sir, what a tremendous actor you are. Just what a tremendous actor. I'll leave it at that. And thanks so much. I hope you all can enjoy Mosquito Coast. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Bye for now.